There's an interesting fight taking place on the undercard of Canelo versus John Ryder this weekend, and that is Oleksandr Gvozdyk versus Ricards Bolotniks. And some of you may know that when he was active, even though he's active now, but in that first half of his career, I was always impressed by Oleksandr Gvozdyk. I thought he was a superb technician, great ability, natural talent, skills, and I thought he was going to go on to do really great things in the division. Of course, he beat Adonis Stevenson, became WBC light heavyweight champion, defended once, then went in against Artur Beterbiev for a light heavyweight title unification, lost that fight, retired, and has since come back in recent months. And that most recent fight he had, his comeback fight against, I don't know, some Hozu Abando. I actually saw the highlights for that fight. That was back in February. It was what you'd expect. Of course, Gvozdyk was out of the ring for like 2.5 years, something like that. So understandably, he was just looking to shake the rust off, go through the motions, get back into the swing of fighting in a professional ring again. And yeah, I saw highlights of it. I don't even think it was televised, but it was what you'd expect. Now he's going in against Bolotniks this weekend, which I think is a considerable step up. Even though it's easy to look at Bolotniks' record and see 19-6-1, and I think out of 19 wins, only 8 of them come by a knockout. Out of 6 losses, 4 of them been by knockout. Yeah, it's easy to kind of dismiss this guy and say, oh, he's a bum, he's useless, he's a journeyman. But Bolotniks, don't be fooled, don't be deceived by his record, because he has some ability. He is quite a rough and ready fighter. So he's a little bit rough around the edges, but he does have some ring craft. He's got plenty of experience, and he will present you with some problems and potentially even turn you over if you're not on your A game. So as I say, I'm intrigued by this fight. I'd expect Gvozdyk to win, just because I think he's got a much better pedigree, and he's you kind of worry about the inactivity of Gvozdyk, but Bolotniks himself hasn't exactly been active. He fought once last year, that was over a year ago, April of 2022, against this Croatian guy, Sep. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his first name. It's just these Croatian names, I can't deal with them. He was 11-0, but his level of opposition wasn't great. Bolotniks won that on an 8-round unanimous decision. And before that was when Bolotniks fought Joshua Buatsi. So that was August 2021, season 2 of Fight Camp in Eddie Hearn's back garden. He lost that one by 11th round TKO. So yeah, Bolotniks hasn't been that active. Of course, more active than Oleksandr Gvozdyk, but I don't think it's going to amount to much. Although Bolotniks beating Gvozdyk wouldn't entirely shock me, because there still are some questions that Gvozdyk needs to answer this second stage of his career, because it always sticks in my mind why Gvozdyk retired, why he had that hiatus, because he lost that fight to Artur Beterbiev, and it seemed like Beterbiev potentially beaten the fight out of Gvozdyk, because of course he won that fight by stoppage, but it's almost like he had broken Gvozdyk's spirit, because as far as I know, whenever Beterbiev and Gvozdyk have met in a ring, Beterbiev's always stopped him. And maybe it kind of just dawned on Oleksandr Gvozdyk that I can't beat this guy. These odds are just, I can't overcome them. They're insurmountable. And then he probably saw or predicted that Beterbiev would then go on to be the number 1 guy in the light heavyweight division. Kind of maybe just resigned himself to accept that and think, you know what, I can't do it. I can't beat this guy, so there's no point me being an active fighter. But then it was also following that fight against Beterbiev, I remember Gvozdyk actually going to the hospital because he'd been complaining about some headaches to the back of his head, which is never a good sign. That's quite concerning. And then when you consider Gvozdyk's history with that kind of thing in his fight against Adonis Stevenson, where Stevenson's career was cut short following the result of that fight, that kind of thing can really spook a fighter. It can really shake him to their core and make him reconsider, is the glory, the the paydays, the titles, is it all really worth it? And so factoring all that stuff in, I didn't really have an issue with Gvozdyk retiring. I was actually, you know what, that's probably the best option for you if you're thinking these kind of things. But then he's come back, which in itself presents a question of why. Why has he come back after so long? I did make a video, I think it was at the beginning of this year, speculating the reasons why he may have come back. One of the reasons that I personally believe is probably the most valid is the situation going on in Gvozdyk's home country, in the Ukraine. Because I'm sure he's probably seen over the past year or however long it's been, his friends, his family, his countrymen go out and fight in a real, genuine conflict and maybe not come back, or probably come back shell-shocked. And it puts boxing into perspective, and he realizes, you know, boxing is so trivial in comparison to this other real-life conflict that all these people, my countrymen, my friends, my family are going through. I should enjoy the privilege of participating in this sport as a professional. Because yeah, it's hard work, but ultimately it is still a privilege to do what you love, do what you're passionate about, when the people next to you are having to go off and fight for your country. And I suspected that it put things into perspective. It probably trivialized boxing and maybe galvanized his confidence. Maybe he feels like he has nothing to lose. Maybe he's seen things that make boxing seem so trivial, as I say. So still a lot of unknowns regarding Oleksandr Gvozdyk and his state mentally. I don't think so much physically, because I think he was still active in a boxing sense. I know he was sparring Canelo. I think that was in the lead up to either Caleb Plant or the Dmitry Bivol fight, one of the two. So he's still been in and around boxing, but of course, being in the gyms and helping out other fighters is quite a bit different to actually pursuing your own career, which is what he's trying to do now. So yeah, just a short video on this one. I'm interested to see how this fight goes down. I'm going to be picking Oleksandr Gvozdyk, but I think this is going to be a good gauge of where he's at and if he's ready, or if he'll ever be ready to get back into that world title mix at light heavyweight. Let me know what you guys think of this fight in the comment section below. Also, are there any other fights on the undercards or any other fights this weekend that you're interested in particular? Leave them down below and I'll get back to you. But for now, thanks for listening, people, and I'll catch you on the next video.